Hey guys, and welcome to another Schematics Interview. This time we want to talk about Parkitect again, and to be honest, this was originally planned to be an update, but then Garret, one of the developers of Parkitect, joined us. How have you been since we last talked? I think it was December.
Yeah, I've been good. Sebastian and I and the rest of the team have kept busy, working on things like the stuff that came out recently that everyone seems pretty excited about, and of course, the campaign, which is coming out later. But we've been really good. We've been really happy with how things are going.
How long have you been planning putting in a day-night cycle and all of the lighting systems?
Well, I'll say first of all, it's not quite a full day-night cycle. It's like a toggle that you can just switch at any time. So it's like kind of, I don't know if we'll do a full day-night cycle yet, but maybe. That's something we've actually been planning since very early on, like back when, like after the Kickstarter at some point, we talked about, oh, it would be cool if we could do lighting or like rad lights and have these sequences happening. And the idea of the sequences and stuff was there. The problem was at the time, Unity wasn't really ready for a game like ours to be lit like that. It's very expensive to try and light a dynamic game and put all the shading or the shadows and stuff like that in there. So we had to wait for Unity to kind of improve a little bit, which, Unity's improving all the time. But yeah, so that was kind of always in the back of our heads as we worked on the game. And then it turned out that they updated Unity to a point that we just could kind of do it. And then Sebastian worked really hard and came up with some new tools and worked on porting the game over from a forward rendering to deferred rendering. And deferred rendering just lets you render way more lights at a way cheaper performance cost. I mean, there's still some performance cost, but it lets you do a lot more fancy stuff. And we had to make some changes to the game to make that happen, but they were all kind of happening over time, like a bunch of things adding together, and finally we could do lighting. So keep that simple, it was in the works for a long time, but not something we could act on for a long time, if that makes sense.
First of all, I've got to say I love how smooth the transition from day to night and vice versa is.
Oh, thanks.
Now to the question, will lights be a part of the gameplay?
We kind of talked about it, and we're happy for now for them just to be an aesthetic thing, just something to like, oh, here's what my park looks like at night, and it looks, really cool. All these rides are animated and stuff. And as for if we'll ever make it part of the gameplay, I'm not too sure. I don't think we will, at least not before we release the game out of early access. Just because there's people saw this with City Skylines. Some people don't like working at night. It's really hard to kind of play stuff, and it can be hard to see things, especially if you're playing in a bright room or something. So we didn't want to force players into that situation where they might not be having fun or just annoyed at the game. So that's why we made it a toggle, because it's like, oh, you can build during the day, and then you can see what it looks like at night.
So in one of your devlogs, you showed off the lighting tool that Sebastian has been using to create the sequences and the patterns. Are there plans on giving players access to a lighting tool?
No. And that's like a really blunt answer, but that tool only works inside Unity and is kind of weird in a few ways that works for us because, we're game developers. We're used to weird tools that aren't user-friendly and are kind of confusing to use sometimes. But if you were to give that to an end user or a player, right, they would be super confused and probably really frustrated using it. And I don't think we have the resources or time at this point to build a tool that would work for everybody, especially to support that after release for however long we need to, and to make it kind of, fun and easy to use and moddable kind of thing.
Right, so since we have lights, are you planning on adding light and laser shows?
Well, because this would require a sequencer like above, I don't think we will. But we've seen in the past people try to mod in other stuff like fireworks or something. Like people make crazy editors for the game just through modding. It's kind of weird what people can get away with in modding, and I think that's just because Unity is the engine and Unity is pretty easy to use and access. So if this happens, it won't be before we release out of early access.
So this makes this question here kind of telling, but I've got to say it out loud. At some point, are we going to see anything related to fireworks? You did mention that people were modding stuff like that into the game, but now with the new lighting, that would be absolutely incredible as something to see post-release.
Yeah, it would be neat, especially if you have a storm happen in your game right now after the update. I think it looks way more interesting because when the lightning happens, it flashes, and just the new rendering stuff we put in makes that just a little bit more crisp and interesting to look at, especially with all the lights on and stuff like that. But Fireworks is like, yeah, it's tricky, right? Because everybody would expect it to work something like Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, for example. And that's kind of what this modder was doing. I haven't heard an update on that mod in a long time, but yeah, the trick is, how does that work with the game perspective in the it's not really orthographic anymore, but it still holds that top-down angled view that we don't want to change. So we'd probably have to adjust how far the camera can zoom, and also cheat with where the fireworks explode and stuff if we were to do it. This is another one I gotta say is like, after we get out of early access, if at all, it would probably make a cool DLC idea, I'll say that.
Cool. Let's talk about the visual update for a little bit. What made you decide to update the visuals and tone down the colors a lot, which I really like, by the way?
Oh, thanks. The color thing was sort of an accident. That just happened as a byproduct of what we were doing. But we ended up liking it, and Sebastian kind of regraded it while I was working on other things, and it turned out pretty nice. The graphical update was kind of something that was just ongoing for a while. As we worked on the deferred rendering branch, it just, and as Unity updated, we were able to put in different post-processing effects, and Unity updated their post-processing stack, which allowed for much cheaper and better looking effects. Like we have temporal anti-aliasing now, which can make some things look weird, but overall looks better and is a little bit more performance friendly. We put ambient occlusion back in. It was there a while ago, but wasn't as nice as we would have liked, and now it looks really nice. And with the clean art style, I think it pops really well, and you can see in all the corners and stuff like that it's just adding a whole new layer of depth to the game. And I don't know, it was just something that as we worked on it, we were like, wow, this looks way better. And we compared it to like the old Steam screenshots, and which we've updated all of them now, but it was like, wow, this is a night and day difference, which is accidental pun there, but hey. Yeah, it was just, yeah, and when we toned down the colors, it was kind of, we got a few complaints about that, but I think it looks better and kind of grounds the game a bit more, if that makes sense. Like, it's really cartoony, but it's kind of grounded in realism, and I almost think the slightly more muted colors kind of helps with that. I don't think it's a big drastic change. I think it's still very colorful, and we still have the desaturated option in color filters, but something that we kind of just did over time. I don't know if there was ever a conscious decision to be like, oh no, we're going to change the visuals and make it way nicer. It's just, it happened as we changed to the deferred rendering, and Unity updated their post-processing and the way the rendering pipeline works and stuff like that. And we just kind of worked into that to kind of keep up to date with Unity, and it just worked out really nicely.
And then we got the final question, which is, the one that's always expected, but the answer is always also kind of expected, and that is, with all the visual improvements and kind of polish being put on the game at this point, how close are we to launch?
We're pretty close, I'll say that. That's very vague still, but yeah, the last big thing is the campaign, and we've been working on it, and I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out. We have a decent number of levels, and Sebastian and I have been balancing them as we work on other things and stuff like that, so we're getting close to having it testable and being able to play through it from start to finish pretty quick here. I can't really give a date, unfortunately, but I can say like it's extremely likely that it will be this year, right? And it probably won't be like December this year. to narrow it down to not like the last minute.
So I'm going Q3 right here.
Yeah, like could be, right? So I would also like to point out, like, Sebastian was key for a lot of these changes in like graphics and stuff, so I want to give him a huge shout out to just the crazy amount of work he did to make the game look the way it does now, and with the lighting stuff. He's largely the driving force behind the game, as much as I go and talk to people and people see the art. Is like Sebastian really drives the game, and of course Luke and Tim, who worked on it for quite some time and did a lot of the tasks that Sebastian couldn't get to, and did the modding stuff early on. So just huge props to them for making the game really awesome. I just make it look pretty.
at least in our little circles, the visuals and lighting update has really drummed up at least discussion around Parkitect again. I've seen it theme park and management game community, and it's been it's obvious that whatever it did, it's pushing people back towards the game, and that's been really cool to see. So
that's good to hear. Yeah, we've seen kind of similar things just on Twitter and I guess the subreddit and stuff. Is there's been a lot more activity in our Discord. There's been a lot more activity with people modding it. There's this really cool catwalks pack that someone made for the roller coasters in the game, and it's really cool and adds a lot. And I think it's really nice to see a whole bunch of mods happening. And now that they're on Steam, that's really cool too, right? So yeah, it's just, I'm really happy that the graphical update has pulled a lot of people back in and some new people in. And I mean, we couldn't have asked for a better result, really.
Now it's your time to shout yourself out and tell people where to find more information about Parkitect.
Yeah, you can find Parkitect on Twitter, which is @ParkitectGame, or the subreddit, which is r/themeparkitect, which is like an old thing when we used to have theme in the name. And you can find, I think, the Discord information on there if you want to join in and chat with some people and some of the modders or get into modding. Yeah, and of course we have the Steam community, which is on Steam. You can find it just by looking through the game stuff. And yeah, you can also follow myself or Sebastian on Twitter. I am @GarretRandall, and Sebastian is I think _Seviov. I always forget the underscore.
Cool. So first of all, thanks, Garret, for joining again and talking a little bit about Parkitect.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you on. And for our listeners and viewers, thanks a lot for listening and viewing. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, whatsoever, we have a wonderful comment section under the video. Feel free to use it. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye.